With a war in Ukraine still raging and China's continuing aggression and military buildup, is this the right time to be pushing people out of the military? Here to discuss this is U.S. Representative Scott Perry, chairman of the House Freedom Caucus and also a member of the House Foreign Affairs Committee. He represents the 10th Congressional District of Pennsylvania. Congressman Perry, welcome back to the program.
Well, thanks for having me. And of course, having spent over 35 years in uniform myself, I'm incredibly dismayed at what we're seeing, the hollowing out of the force. We've seen it happen from a policy perspective for, I'd say, about the last 10 to 15 years in earnest. And now we're seeing it literally from the members and all that experience being stripped away. Remember, this so-called vaccination, which is, I think, realistically a therapeutic at best, is still experimental. I'm a person, and many people like me have gotten. We've got a full shot record of many vaccinations on behalf of the military that were required of us. You knew it was part of the mission when you signed up, but never to a point where you questioned the accuracy, the validity, and the safety of what the military was putting in your body. On this occasion, I think, based on everything that we've read, everything out there in the public domain, and of course the actions of some of the manufacturers, and that they don't want the people to know. You still can't know. You still don't get to know what's in these so-called vaccines, and yet they're forcing the military to take them. Arguably the most healthy segment of the United States population, and at the lowest risk. And it goes to show how ideological this administration, this commander in chief is, and how they're interested in making sure that anyone who dissents about anything regarding the administration's policies must be cleansed and must be silenced. And that's what we're literally seeing.
Representative Perry, you've touched on this a bit, but there are those who say this is really very simple. They have disobeyed a military command. It's not unusual to punish service members who refuse to carry out orders. Is this different than that in your mind?
No, actually, there's truth to that. You must obey orders, and so if that's the order and you're not going to obey the order, there are consequences, and those service members have a decision to make. I guess the point I'm making is that the senior leadership has decisions to make as well, and knowing that many uniformed service members that are going to be leaving the force because of this is a detriment to the force itself and to national security. And when you've got that kind of circumstance, it's important to take a breath and make sure that your policy is correct. There must be some reason. There must be some reason after all.
Representative Perry, it looks like we may have lost that connection, and we will see if we can get him back. It is the wonders of the internet and trying to communicate from a distance. And when he gets back, I do want to ask him this question because
the military needs to take stock of that, and they're not doing that.
Representative Perry, you did drop off there for just a moment, so I'm going to ask you a question. I think we're going to catch up to you briefly here,
okay.
But in March of this year, the CDC released data that said 95% of Americans have COVID antibodies, either from the vaccine or because they've been exposed to the virus. Given that number, is there even a conceivable health benefit from requiring a vaccine at this point?
I think there potentially can be for certain people under certain conditions, but as I said, in this part might have been dropped off, as we're talking about one of the, if not the healthiest segment of the American population being forced to do this. And I would suggest that the data doesn't show that they're at great peril of some kind of national security event due to the onset of COVID-19 on a mass scale across the military. And so this is really about managing risk for our senior leaders. But it's apparent to me that this is an ideological circumstance by the administration, and they're not really taking the risk to national security and the hollowing out of the experience in the force into play when they force this decision, and forcing many members that are well trained, that we have paid for, that training cannot be replaced quickly, and some can never be replaced over time, for this hasty ideological decision. And I think that that's what we're seeing here, and that's really unfortunate because we're jeopardizing all of our national security uh, because of this political ideology that you will submit or you will be silenced.
Yeah. I think there's a growing number of Americans who see this as an issue of submission rather than concern for public health. But Representative Perry, I want to bring up another subject with you because the debate
Sure.
about what's happening at the border just continues. Vice President Harris had this to say about the growing concerns over the border. I want to play clip one and then let you react to that.
I would suggest that so-called leaders focus on solutions instead of attacks if they really are concerned about a problem. And that includes on the issue of immigration, passing a pathway for citizenship, fixing what, in particular under the prior administration, was a badly broken system.
Representative Perry, are the president's critics on immigration just focused on attacks, or are they trying to find solutions?
Well, actually, the solutions are at hand in many, many cases. Actually, in most cases, laws are on the books as the solutions. The American people have supported those laws on numerous occasions through numerous elections, both at the executive and the legislative level. And the failure and the unwillingness and of the Biden administration and Vice President Harris herself to follow the law. You know, it's one thing to talk about service members that aren't following orders and that being consequences, but what are the consequences when the chief executive and the vice president refuse to follow the orders? And as a matter of fact, it's actually worse than that. They're actually flouting the law, actively disobeying the law when they have one duty, and that is to faithfully discharge the laws that are made by this legislature and this process that we have. So, with all due respect to the vice president, the criticism is actually warranted. The solutions are in hand. They refuse to acknowledge them, and they certainly refuse to implement them. And I would also say this regarding the pathway to citizenship that she discussed. I'm not sure why that's even necessary at this point, as long as they're going to leave the border wide open for anybody that wants to come in. There are more requirements on American citizens in their daily lives than there are for people that come across the border illegally and reside in the United States of America. And that's not how it's supposed to be. And so we all want to help. We're all understanding of the plight of people that want to come to the United States of America, but we either live in a world of laws and rules where people abide by them or we don't. What we have is a two-tiered system. Vice President Harris and President Biden refuse to abide by the same laws that you and I have to. And that system does not last very long.
Representative Perry, it is slightly ironic that we're about to kick out more than 60,000 service members for refusing to obey orders when the White House does seem to have a problem trying to figure out whether they want to enforce their orders, which are the laws of the United States. In about 15 seconds, still getting really bad inflation numbers. Is that ever going to end?
Well, certainly not under this administration. What they're looking to do in the Democrat Party is change the leadership. They don't want Joe Biden anymore because his numbers are terrible. What they haven't figured out is it doesn't matter if it's Joe Biden, Kamala Harris, or any random Democrat there. As long as these policies continue, the American people are going to reject it because it's awful. It's awful for them economically. They're doing worse, and they feel it every single day. So they're talking about solutions. The solution isn't necessarily to change Joe Biden. The solution is to change these horrific policies that are destroying the economic well-being of the American people.
Representative Perry, we are out of time. Thank you for your time. Talk to you